Uh-huh.
Okay, folks, I think we'll make a start. So welcome to this Zoom meeting of the Orkney Archaeological Society. My name is David Dreamer. I'm the chair of the Archaeological Society here in Orkney, and I'm delighted to welcome our speaker tonight, Andrew Appleby, who is the president of the John Ray Society. And he's going to talk to us about drains and other interesting things to do with the society and with some archaeological exploration that has been going on there for a while. Just before we start, a couple of housekeeping things. Andrew will speak for probably up to about an hour, and we'll have a question session at the end of that. If you'd like to ask any questions, if questions occur to you in the course of Andrew's talk, then why don't you put them in the chat box, and we'll try and roll up these questions and put them to Andrew at the question session at the end of the talk. And can I ask you please to mute your microphone, please? And if you forget to do that, I'll probably take the opportunity of muting you from this end. So there we are. It's a fine spring evening here in Orkney, although we had flurries of snow earlier on today. Welcome to you if you're here with us in Orkney, and a particularly warm welcome to you if you're joining us from Firth of our Islands. But enough from me. Let's hand over to Andrew Appleby, and we'll hear what he's got to tell us about the recent and ongoing archaeological work at the Hall of Clestrain. Andrew, over to you.
Thank you. And I've just noticed I seem to have a halo. It's a round mirror in the room, so you'll just have to ignore all that. But thank you very much indeed for inviting me to speak about the Hall of Clestrain and the archaeology. As you see, this is really all about John Ray, but and he will appear in this, but he's not actually the main focus, because we're dealing with the archaeology, but that is, you will see how relevant that is to him. Now, we have the Hall of Clestrain here. It's a very beautiful building, and it was always said to be built in 1769. Well, that to me is, I query that. There was a court case in 1769 which dealt with all the interior fittings. I think the Honeymans who built it were trying to reduce the bill. But that is the interesting thing. It does list like all the nails and the window panes and all manner of things that went into the hall and colors of paint. So this hall must have been in existence before 1769. And there is good evidence for that. But you see, where the sheep are, there's a little bit of a mound there in front of this forestair. And we know that these steps, the bottom steps, do go down a little bit. And then there's this moat wall, which goes round three sides of the hall. And I've always felt this was a little bit not quite right. And I think through the course of the excavations that you see, you'll realize how not quite right that is. Now I'm going to go for the next slide if I can get this machine working right. Oops, no. Return, no. Wait, enter. How do I get the next slide? Haley showed me just a moment ago. Wait, look at that. I found a device. Now, this is a map which was published in as an Admiralty chart in 1750. And it was drawn by Murdo Mackenzie. So we're dealing with 1750. And if you look where Clestrain is.
What are you doing?
I've got it in on here.
There's a symbol for a hall in the key to the map that says a gentleman's mansion. The positioning of the hall is in direct line with the center of Hoy Sound. And this chart showed a landmark, which was the Hall of Clestrain. And it was painted white so that it could be seen from a long distance. And so shipping coming down the coast this way or up the coast this way would get to the middle of Hoy Sound. They'd see the hall and then could sail in this here and miss all the rocks. And then when they'd seen Stromness, turn and go up into the harbour here. Now at Clestrain, which was at this point, they could see the ships coming in, and if it was night, there'd be ships' lamps and things, and they could signal then to Stromness to say there's ships coming in, because people in Stromness wouldn't know, because they couldn't see them, and neither could the ships see Stromness, but they could see the Hall of Clestrain. And that is such an important position for trade with all over the world and the Arctic. And we know that there was a lot of shipping going past here, and it was so important that it got into Stromness without incident. So that is why the hall is there. Now we'll go back if we can. Yes. So here's the hall. Imagine it painted white, and there are big windows on the west side here. This is the south face. The other side is the north face. This is west, and over here is east. You can see there's a pavilion there, which was 18th century, and there was another one here, but that was, sorry, that was knocked down in the 1950s. And there's a good reason for that, and I'll go into that later. So, but there are big windows on here, and there's a window up in the attic there, and from these you could look directly onto Hoy Sound. So you've got a terrific place for sighting shipping. Now we will try and do the next slide. Yes, there we are. So we're back to Clestrain here. And it's interesting, there's, it says lead ore here, there's lead ore there. It's got quite a few good geographical things. There's spring water. Sorry, I don't know how that happened, but it did. So there's a lot of information on that map, and there's wind speeds and water speeds and all sorts of stuff, which I don't understand, but a navigator would. Now, the Hall of Clestrain, it's always been under threat. Hopefully those threats will be lessened. And this was a storm of a few years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And Paddy Casey happened to be working on the farm doing some cow sheds and things. And he got his men straight there to fix all these holes in the roof, and if they hadn't have done that, we'd have lost the roof. So that was terrific. And it's storms like this. There was meant to be a pediment on the south face, and that blew away. It's recorded blew away in the end of the 1700s, maybe about 1795 or something like that, and the roof blew off, and it was put back on again, and there is evidence for that incident within the hall. So that's another phase. So we shall pop on. So this is in sunnier times. Here's your view of Hoy Sound. So you can just imagine any shipping coming here, even at night time, there'll be the ship's lights if there was good visibility. And they will be guided in. And of course, there would be lights on probably in the hall, probably kept lamps burning there. So it acted as a lighthouse, a wee pharos. But it's such a beautiful situation. Every time I go there, I get inspired, whether it's a terrible day or whether it's a beautiful day like this. This is the West Pavilion. Well, here we've got, oh, dang, sorry. This little monument here was placed by Historic Scotland. Standing next to it is Jean Craig. Now, this was the last act of Historic Scotland. We'd asked for a blue plaque for the hall because you could ask for blue plaques for places. And they said, no, you can't have a blue plaque. Because this is John Ray, we're going to give you a bronze plaque. And their stonemason wanted to do something really special, and he did. And this stone here shows the route of the Northwest Passage. And I think that is really quite special of Historic Scotland. And then at 5 o'clock that afternoon, we opened some whiskey and toasted it. And that was the last act of Historic Scotland. They became Historic Environment Scotland just after that. But here is the West Pavilion, and you can see this great architectural features of the windows, and this is a door, and very high class, sophisticated work. Now, the roof here is not the original roof. This we've seen from photographs was actually, the walls were actually 3 feet higher, and the roof was of a similar pitch to the hall. So it was more like a 45-degree pitch instead of this one. And so it's been 3 feet has been removed from the top of it. And we'll talk about the other scale of it all in a little while. Inside the hall, I'm just going to check, wait, this is just, I'm just going to go back, right, we've got that. This is the ground floor of the hall. It is being termed as the basement of the hall, but I really do want that term changed to ground floor. When we formed the society, we asked our members if they would sponsor acroprops because we felt that these beams here were likely to collapse. And I think that summer they would have done because it was extremely dry and all the wood shrank in it and it was coming away from the walls. So, and also this is, here is pigeon guano, which we removed just over 4 tons of it from the hall. And people say, what a shame to have built pig pens in the ground floor of the Hall of Clestrain. Well, I think those little piggies saved the place because this was when pig farming was having a boom in Orkney. The hall had been vacated by the people who lived in it, the Craigies, and because of a roof incident, the roof was fixed, the pigs went in, and there was poultry in the top floor. So you got pigs at the basement and poultry up the top, and there was a bit of living space on the first floor. So this made the hall worthwhile as a business farming proposition to keep it going. So if these pigs and the poultry wasn't there, then I think we'd have certainly lost the hall. So I thank those little porkers. Now we have the cantilevered Pencheck stair. Now it's very, very impressive, and this goes from the ground floor right up to the first floor and then to the second floor. And it's terribly impressive. It's made of freestone, which was quarried. There's a quarry on the road that goes over to Orfa, up on the hill there, Quarryfield it's called, funnily enough. And you can get all the stone you ever need to build the Hall of Clestrain from that place, apart from the roof slates. They came from Black Crags, Stromness way. So, but it is marvelous to know that all this stonework came from that quarry, and we had the quality of masons to make this excellent stair. But it does have an anomaly. Right, just a minute. Because this part of the stair is built on a wooden floor, and the lower part of the stair doesn't really quite meet it, but that's something we'll resolve later. Now, here you can see the utter deterioration of the building. This is on the first floor. There's a window here, which looks along what we call the Coldemo Road. That is another talk altogether. This window here, on the north side, that faces the vista that this house would have had. And that is along this road to Coldemo Bay. It has Coldemo Bay, and you see up Stennis Lock, and it's a beautiful vista. There is no real vista going southwards, which is meant to have been the front of the hall. So there's a bit of a conundrum there. And on this side, I mean, you can see, I'm sorry, I'll go back, the deterioration of the wood. We've got acroprops supported on acroprops below, holding the roof up. And it's really quite precarious. So we are ready for restoration. We've just got to get a little bit more money in that. This window here has remnants. You can't see it here because there's a bit of an old partition wall there, which probably goes back to about 1850. There's the last remnant of wooden paneling at the top of that window. So we can understand what that was like. But this is post John Ray. These window panes, sorry, I'll go back. These window panes here are too big. They would have been smaller window panes altogether. So there's been refit after refit of this house. It was probably an older building when the Honeymans took it over, and they renovated it so that one of the younger Honeymans could give his wife a Palladian style home. And that, we believe, is probably when all this work happened, just prior to 1769. But there was a building there for them to renovate and change. And every generation makes changes to buildings. Here we see the stair going down the Pencheck, sorry, the banister, and this is all beautiful wrought iron. It's in a terrible state, but we will be making that good. And over here, there was, this is where a stair went up, or a ladder stair really, went up into the rafters and the room above. This is the second floor. There's a freestone fireplace here. All the fireplaces are blocked in. So when we come to do restoration, these will have to be excavated archaeologically and see what different phases has happened. There's the beautiful beam works here, but the beams had all been numbered so they could go up in sequence, but the numbers aren't in sequence, which indicates that this roof had come off and been put back on again. So that is interesting in itself. And there are anomalies from one side to the other. And we do know that there was this storm incident in the very late 1700s, which took the pediment away. Now, this window here is tremendous because this is your view from the second floor to Hoy Sound. And if somebody was, say, in bed here, they could, tall bed, they could still be looking out and watching for shipping and make a signal into Stromness to say, right, there are ships here coming in, get the pubs open, or get the stores working. Here we have the state of the woodwork. It's really quite drastic. This is a ship's beam. There's lots of bits of ship in here. Some quite fancy bits, and some, I'll just go back. Yeah, there's the ship's beam over the window there. So there's an agglomeration of wood, and some of the beams have been pit sawn and others have been adzed. So we've got woodwork from different periods, but in the same roof. So one wonders where the adzed wood came from, probably an earlier building. And we've got Industrial Revolution nails, which indicates a later date than some of the other ironwork. Right, we'll see. Now here we start dealing with a bit of the archaeology. What I've given you is like a bit of a background to the hall. In lockdown, Sigrid and I were working on refitting the cabin and decorating that. And there was this stonework. You could just see the edges of this stonework being revealed. And she's a very inquisitive lady. And so she pulled away the turf and started to reveal these paving slabs. And there's a little drain here, which I call Sigrid's drain. And so Sigrid said, we should go deeper. And I said, no, we're not doing that at all until we've got a proper archaeologist with us to record, which we got. So here's the stonework revealed, but what does it mean? When was this fancy stonework put in and along here? Well, I think we found out. Here's Sigrid's drain. That's cleaned out, and here is a stone, and that is a whacker of a stone which actually covers a drain. There's a beautiful drain stones underneath here, which took water from the south side of the hall all the way around the west side to here, and then flowed along the north side of the hall and then up the west side and out of an outflow. But that is just the tip of it. You see, we thought everything was going to be very shallow, that you'd get down to an 18th century courtyard pretty rapidly, and that would be it, but not the case. Now here you see these stones have subsided. And why is that? They were set over something, some form of infill. And there it is. That was the stair down. This is the great slab. And there's a drain runs underneath that. So this was quite impressive. Now, Jean Craigie remembers these steps. And these were the way you would go, and Ivan, when he was a boy, they would go down these steps into the north door and enter their home. And there was, we're told, a stone floor there. But this house was being reused, and it was being reused for pigs. So this stone stair,
Yeah.
pigs do not like going down steps or coming up them. And so they were infilled. We believe the East Pavilion was knocked down, demolished, and the rubble infilled in the hall itself, covering the floor. And then concreted over and the pig pens built. They're very well built pig pens. We have recorded them on a digital survey. So it's part of the history of the hall, and we can't ignore that. Now we have the north side of the hall, and that was the door everyone went in and out. Here's the blocked up window where a cupboard was placed, and these are windows either side. And here is the way in for the pigs. But we started to excavate along the north facade, and we got surprises because we didn't understand what this stair was all about at the time, but slowly it became evident. Now this here is a windowsill, and it's very low to the ground. They were blocked in like this so the piggies couldn't see out and made a rush for freedom. So that was blocked in, and there was just light coming in from the windows above. And this was quite loose rubble. A few bits of Victorian pottery and such like. But as we went down, here were the capstones for a huge drain, which was running along the north face. There was a bit of an anomalous drain coming here, which we don't fully understand, but we will at a later time. So here we are, the drain running along this from that stairwell. And this is a drain cap being removed. And it's always an exciting moment, revealing a bit of drainage. Archaeologists, all of us, we just love drains. They're great. And here's a photograph of within the drain. And that is, at the back there, is the wall of the stairwell. And that wall supports all that major stonework. So it gets intriguinger. And this is the drain going the other way to the west corner, and you can see the light coming from that moat, the open moat. There's the moat wall going round. This here is the wall of the stairwell. That's the great big slab along the top. Here is the wall. Here is the wall of the drain. This is keyed in. Sorry, we'll go back. This is keyed into that, which shows this was one phase. At this point here, there's a drain gully made from sandstone, and here is a paving slab. Now that goes under this drain wall and will touch the north face of the Hall of Clestrain. Now, I'd always imagined, I'd said to people, I just imagined John Ray, it's a bit rude really, coming out of that door and maybe having a wee into a drain. And I reckon lots of people did. But here you see, you've got this beautiful gully. And at this point here, it is eroded into a pit. And I think that is from people up here somewhere urinating down there. Right, we'll just go back a bit. But what this indicates is that you've got a drain at this level, there's a slab here, and that could well be a pathway which goes around the hall, and there'll be further evidence of it later. So we've got quite a big change in layers here. This is what John Ray will have seen and known. He didn't know this drain that was built after his time. So I will go back a bit. Here we are. So we've got 3 feet of drain here at least. And everything, this north courtyard has been filled in for some reason or another. And the moat, the drain comes around here. So this has been filled in. A drain has been built along the face of the hall and everything has changed. So this building will have looked 3 feet taller. Now, if you remember the pavilion, it looks quite stubby, but it did have 3 feet of walling on top. And now we realize that its roots go 3 feet deeper. And this is quite a staggering proportion to be added to that building that's like 6 feet. So when we come to restore, we want it to look as it did. And now Historic Environment Scotland have recommended that we remove this 3 feet from the North Courtyard, which I'm very excited about. So we can show the hall as it stood in John Ray's time. Here's the drain coming around this corner into the moat. And the moat wall is keyed into all of this. So that would have been built in around 1850. That's after John Ray's time. And on this corner, you can see this lovely drain slab, corner slab turning. And here is another big paving stone underlying this wall here. So the drains are quite intriguing. This is the moat wall. This is the wall of the hall. And here is the drain coming into that moat. And that is looking up the drain from down in the moat around the corner. Here is the, as you see, is this moat wall, which is entirely intrusive. I believe that for quite a while. And this, just go back. I don't know why it does that. It was the grass and mud which had accrued. The whole drain was cleared out in the 70s. Ivan had a chap from Australia working on the farm, and he got him to clear it all out, and everything was loaded into a cart and dumped over the into the sea. So there must be something happening along here somewhere, because what we feel is that this hall is a very heavy building, and its foundations will have been built on hard glacial till, which meant excavating a terrace down a long way to build the hall on. And this is what we're dealing with. This is why it is so deep. And we'll now go, and Historic Environment Scotland said we had to clean it out. So this was the Edrington Trust volunteers who came and cleaned it. And there was loads of modern stuff chucked in there as well. Baler twine and just all sorts of bruck, really. Some very recent china got chucked in there. So here we are. When cleaned, I can hear you all gasp. This is what we found was another beautiful cornerstone. And this here is slightly broken paving, which we believe John Ray will have known very well indeed. So go back. So we have these drain stones going around, and because this wall has been built on top of them, that has made them subside, some break and crack, which is really quite alarming. And I've always wanted this dike to go because I felt that it was intrusive and it ruins the scale of the hall. But it was recommended that it should be restored and put back at a lot of money, which I didn't feel was a good idea. So, right, here is the wall which supports the forestair. There is a drain coming through there, which was from the pig pens within the hall down in the ground floor. And that drained into the drain stones. There's quite a few phases in this wall, and this has to be worked out yet. This looks keyed into the hall, and some of this looks a bit added on. So this is going to take some time to unpick the sequences, but that will happen. This is what the Edrington boys found, which is what we were hoping to discover, and that's the exit of the drain. It's a very small aperture, but it's meant to have coped with taking the water out. But it was blocked. And so consequently, standing water in here, standing water around the toes of our precious hall, which is not good. And because all the drain stones here are disrupted, nothing was really running properly. So Jimmy Craigie came along. We got him with his drain clearing equipment to go down the drain, and he took a camera, had camera equipment, and we could see the drain going away down west, and then it curved and turned. We don't quite know where it goes to, but we will find out. But we couldn't get it unblocked, so the water wasn't running away, and it was rather disturbing. So I asked him to bring his digger along, which he did, and we uncovered these stones heading west, and we removed a couple, and there was all the sludge, which is largely pig manure, which had washed out of the pigsties. And there you could see it all, but just with a few jiggles with a spade, it suddenly went glug and just trickled away. And it was a marvelous sight. when you see your obstacle, the thing that you really detest because it's holding you back, just suddenly slip and gurgle away. And where it went, we don't know, but I dare say we will find out one day. But the drain works now, which is excellent. So we can rely on it and we can keep it clean. But what I noticed when this trench was dug was there was a little edge in some clay here. So whilst I had the opportunity, I got Jimmy Craigie just to scrape out this area down to clay. And here we have the original edge of the big cut to make the terrace to build the hall on. And so now we've got, this is all just dumped in midden. We'll need to discover the relationship between this edge and the edge of the drain, but that will happen. But we've got this, and that is of such importance to us because it's shown now that this wall is totally intrusive and we've been recommended to remove it. And I think that's a triumph. I'm very pleased because then we will take it back to what John Ray saw, or a good idea of what John Ray saw. And also with the north courtyard coming down by 3 feet, that is going to make a huge difference to the building. Now, nobody really thought that this site had that potential. I didn't. I thought that maybe we, as I said, a few inches we'll find the courtyard, but no, it's feet, which is great. Now, these are the volunteers from the Edrington Trust. And the Edrington Trust owns Highland Park, so they do have these volunteers who can help on good charitable works, and we are a charity. So that is what we cheered about. I've come quite quicker than I thought to the end, but it's not quite the end. It says the answers do lie in the drains, and I think for us they have done, but this isn't all of the archaeology. There is stacks more, and there's the East Pavilion, which we did take off the top surface layer of and found stable flooring and a drain, stable drain. We found a kist-like structure, which has probably held a water tank. But now we know that there's all this extra infill in that north courtyard. Who knows what will be discovered when we are asked, when we remove that 3 feet of dumped soil. The dump in there is of midden and also glacial till. You can see like cartloads of glacial till go in, cartload of midden, and you suddenly think you've got an edge to something, but it isn't. It's a dumped bit of glacial till. So there's the thanks. But then we come to this part. And this is our new venture, which we're taking on. This is what we call the road to the Arctic. The estimated cost is 150,000 or thereabouts. Now, we need to make this access road down to the north side of the hall so that this hall can actually be restored, because we need heavy machinery, all sorts of stuff, and the excavations here to occur. So we need a service road, and that will be a beautifully tarmac road eventually, but for the first part, we will just have it as a smooth but rubble road. This is an Inukshuk built by, oh, what's her name? Grieve, the young lass, well, she was young then. And this is like an Inuit structure, which you can look through and see where you're going. And then there's a lot of mysticism about them. That will stay. But this is where our road will go. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be delighted to take some.
Thank you very much, Andrew. That was fascinating. It's a mixture, ladies and gentlemen, I think, of history, of historical architecture, and the beginnings of archaeological exploration. So it's a very fine mixture of all these things, and very much in keeping with the rich cultural history that we have here in Orkney. It's a remarkable project that the Hall of Clestrain is undertaking, that the John Ray Society is undertaking, deeply ambitious, but also deeply, deeply exciting. Can I suggest, if anyone has any questions, they put them in the chat box and we can pick them up from there. There's thanks coming in, Andrew, on the chat box, but if you have questions, can you perhaps add them to the chat box, and we'll see if Andrew can provide you with answers. Can I perhaps kick off, Andrew, if I may? The investigation of the drains seems extremely interesting, and it's going to be vital in the architectural renovation work that you do.
Yeah.
Is there any plans to look at the surrounding curtilage of the hall in an archaeological way to see if that throws up areas of interest or artifacts of interest? Is that anything that might be undertaken in the future, Andrew?
Yes, it certainly will. I think the archaeology here will go on for a long while. There are areas which need looking at. In this field of low dikes here, there are curious mounds which Dan Lee looked at with us. And there's a knocking stone in there. There's the old walled garden, which doesn't belong to us, but I'm sure we can get that planned. We've done some work on that, but funding was very short. Where the forestair is, that needs to be excavated down to see the relationship of forestair with the this berm that we discovered. There's a lot to do, and at the same time there's going to be the restoration program, so things have to be carefully planned and worked out, so that archaeology can happen and the house can be restored. And of course there's all the buildings archaeology within it, and that's an immense task just on its own. So there's a great deal to do.
Okay, thanks for that, Andrew. Fiona is asking, the honeyman that you spoke of there as being the landowners, I would imagine,
Yes.
and the instigators of the early phases of the hall. She's asking, was that honeyman an early relation of the Glasgow architect Honeyman? That might be a tough call for you, Andrew, but do you have an answer?
I think there is a relationship there. The Honeymans had a huge estate in Orkney, and then they moved into Scotland. And the reason why John Ray was there was because John Ray's father, who was also John Ray, was employed as the factor, and he'd worked for the Honeyman family on one of their Scottish estates. So he came to Clestrain, lived in the hall, and of course John Ray was born in 1813, and they had quite a family. So that's how, yeah, there is a relationship between the Honeyman family and the architects.
That's very helpful. Andrew, can I ask an ancillary question to that? Does that mean that the Hall of Clestrain was built for John Ray Sr. when he was the factor of the estate?
No, it wasn't built for him. It was built for one of the Honeymans and his good wife. They were newly married, And I'm in Edinburgh at the moment, and actually we looked at Gayfield House, which was the inspiration for this. And they were on honeymoon, the Honeymooners were on honeymoon in Edinburgh, and Mrs. Honeyman quite liked the idea of this style of house. So we feel that they came back and remodeled this pre-existing mansion. And then when they left the estate to run estates in Scotland, that's when the Ray family were there, employed as factors. And of course, John Ray's father, John Ray, was also the recruitment officer for Hudson Bay Company. So he was very involved in the Arctic, which is why John Ray would have gone to the Arctic, and one of his brothers did too. So, so there's a huge connection. And when you see the connection between that house and the sea and exploration and voyages to the Arctic, there's such an obvious draw, which is, I'm certain, is why John Ray became the explorer that he did. He was rooted in Arctic stories. He will have met sea captains, he will have met crew members who will have been Inuit, Cree and Dogred people coming over and into Stromness. So he had a great upbringing. So yeah, no, it wasn't built for John Ray. It was built for him.
Yeah. Thank you. The again, an ancillary question on the Honeywells. The question is, was this Honeyman family the one who did the clearances in Sutherland?
Regrettably, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do feel sorry, very sorry about that. Although it's not our personal responsibility, but that is what happened, and so yeah, they did that.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Andrew, and thank you for the question, Carrie Welling. Is there any other questions any of our audience tonight would like to ask to Andrew? Any observations on the ongoing work that we would like to comment on? I'm not seeing anything, Andrew.
Okay.
So can I, on behalf of our attendees tonight, thank you very much, Andrew, for your fascinating talk tonight. Nigel Wilkes wants to know what's the next stage of restoration. So what I'll do, Andrew, I'll let you answer that one and give any summing up that you want to say or final words from yourself before we close. Next stage of restoration, Andrew.
Well, directly we've got this road done, then we will be ready to restore. Now, the first stage of restoration is really what they call wind and watertight. We did a wind and watertight job which cost around 18,000, but that was just to secure the roof and block in windows. But this restoration is going to be new roof, windows, but I'm seeing HES people tomorrow. As you know, I'm in Edinburgh, and I'm seeing our cultural architects tomorrow, and we'll be going for what we call pre-planning. So we can work out, we'll all work out together what's needed to be done, like removal of that the moat wall and taking it down 3 feet and removing the pig pens. All these things have to have their planning consent, but if we go to pre-planning, that doesn't cost us fees from the council, but we show them what we want, and that's where we start to sort out what can happen and what can't happen. And so that is the next stage. And I'll be talking about that tomorrow with HES and Simpson and Brown, our heritage architects. I hope that helps.
Yes, indeed, Andrew. Thank you for that. I think really that we'll conclude at that. Nice to be hearing what's coming up in the future, Andrew. I'm sure the rest of your audience tonight will join with me in wishing the John Ray Society all strength, patience and endurance in the work to come, because it really is, it's a magnificent and an ambitious project that will be worthy of completion. So thank you again, Andrew, for your presentation tonight.
If anybody would like to join us, please do go onto our website, www.johnraysociety.com. You can join us there. If you've got lots of money, can you give it to us? Because we need lots, although we are doing very well with donations just at the moment. But thank you very much for being there and listening.
Super. And thank you for that last comment, Andrew. The website is there, further information about the work of the Society and indeed how to donate to it if you wish. Thank you for your presentation, Andrew, and thank you to our audience for joining us tonight. We look forward to seeing you at our future events for the Orkney Archaeological Society. Meanwhile, there is blue sky out the window, I can see. We still have a fine spring evening. Enjoy the rest of it. Thank you and good night.
One last thing, I'd like to thank all our team of John Ray Society and the trustees and all the hardworking people that do a great deal. And if it weren't for their work, we wouldn't be where we are. Thank you.
Thank you.